Hello all GameSpot faithful readers, I'm Kevin VanOrd, Associate Editor here at GameSpot, and I am here joined by Chris Watters, also Associate Editor, and Andre Segers, our Game Guides Editor. And we are here to talk a little bit about Killzone 2. We've had a chance to play for the last couple weeks, and we wanted to share some impressions prior to the review, and that's what we're doing here today. And first thing I want to talk about with both of you, Chris has had an opportunity to play multiplayer with me. There are press sessions prior to a game's release where all the press and developers get together and play multiplayer. Andre's played the full single-player campaign. And so one thing that we can all bring together and talk about is, as I'm sure everybody wants to hear about anyway, are Killzone 2's visuals. And I'm just going to give it to Chris because I want to hear what you have to say.
You know, Kevin, you were playing through the single-player campaign a lot and just constantly exclaiming, "Oh my God, this game looks great! This game looks awesome!" And then I of course, I'd run around and check it out, and the game does look great. Watching it in action, it's smooth and fluid like you expect an FPS to be, but it uses all these great effects to create really this foreign environment. You know, it's on an alien planet. It takes place. It's industrialized. It's gritty. It's dark. And you got some filters across the screen that just really give it this rich, almost artistic feel.
I know that Andre definitely has some feelings about the visuals as well, and I want to hear what you've got to say.
Well, I mean, it does some things very well. Animation, lighting. I think the lens flares are some of the best I've ever seen in a game. But I don't think it's totally consistent. For one, some of the textures are lacking in detail. You get up close, they just look hideous. And the character models, they are some of the ugliest characters I have seen since Oblivion. They are hideous. And
Wow.
And although the animation is great overall, the lip syncing is off consistently, whether it's in gameplay or during cutscenes.
Whether or not we're at a point where we can say, this is the best looking console game of all time, hold off, wait and see what the review has to say.
Yeah.
But we definitely have a lot of feelings about how Killzone 2 looks, and I think we're all in agreement that it does look pretty fantastic across the board for the most part.
It looks above average.
Since we've sort of moved on to talking about some of the mechanics, there are definitely some differences between Killzone 2 and your average first-person shooter. And I want to talk a little bit about those things. And one thing that I first want to talk about before we even get into weapons and shooting is I want to talk a little bit about the movement mechanics, because movement in Killzone 2 definitely feels a lot different than most other first-person shooters. And what did you think, Andre, about the way you move about? Can you describe how that feels?
Yeah, I totally can. It feels like you're moving through molasses almost. And as I can understand why they did that, they try to make it more deliberate with a slower running speed than your average shooter. But my biggest qualm with the controls are that there's actual latency with them. If you perform an action, it takes about a quarter to half a second before it actually responds on screen. For instance, if you move your joystick all the way left or right, so it makes so you can hear the click when it hits the plastic edge, it takes a moment for it to respond on screen, and that to me is just a huge annoyance. So it often results in your crosshair just zooming over the enemy, and it just makes aiming a chore.
I view it as a hybrid of Call of Duty and Gears of War. With Gears of War, you're moving at a plodding pace, and except for when you're roadie running, and then you're moving at a pretty good clip. And this has a sprint mechanic in it, and you can sprint pretty much as long as you want, which is interesting because in Call of Duty you can't. So while you do move at a slower pace than, say, a Halo or a Counter-Strike, then you can still sprint and run for as long as you please and get to the action faster, which is great for me in the multiplayer match.
Well, let's talk now about the weapons and the shooting. It's all about the shooting and all about the action. And you definitely go through a lot of different environments in Killzone 2. And I think there are some really great set-piece moments. The first one that jumps out at me, and there aren't a whole lot of sequences like this, but there's a sequence towards maybe about 3/4 of the way through the game where you actually get into a mech. And that's one of the most, I'm a big fan of turret mech on rails kind of sequences anyway in shooters because they mix things up. And I think this is a really well done sequence, and especially where the visuals are concerned.
Yeah. I did get to catch a glimpse of you, Kevin, while you were doing the mech sequence you were talking about. And again, you're sort of, you got these glass panels, enclosing that's your steel cage that you're in. And as you take more damage, the glass starts to crack and little wind is coming in and like you're sort of staggering a little bit. I thought it was cool how the mech showed damage, as you were sort of progressing. But when you're just a soldier, it shows damage with like sort of that encroaching red splatter.
It does a very Call of Duty 4 type thing. We've seen this before where a shooter takes the HUD-less approach. The heads-up display is mostly gone from Killzone 2 with some added things here and there, like if you need to use a compass to get to where you need to go, you can get a little marker to show you where you need to go next. But for the most part, it takes the HUD-less approach. So when you're close to death, the darkness encroaches, the redness encroaches, and actually things get very black and white. If you're really close to death, there's essentially no color on the screen. The sound is very muffled. Again, that's been done before, but I think it's done pretty well. Moving out of the weapons, or we should talk actually more about the weapons, but in a different context, because Chris and I have played a good amount of multiplayer at this point. Or I shouldn't say a good amount, but we played some.
Played an amount.
Yeah, we have. There have been, just for our audience to let you know how a lot of the time a multiplayer game will work before release. There will be scheduled sessions between members of the press and the development team, and there have been 3 of those totaling an hour each. So altogether, we've gotten a chance to play 3 hours worth of Killzone 2. However, and I think Chris would agree with this, Killzone 2's multiplayer component is huge, and it's very intricate. So 3 hours is certainly not enough time to be able to say, hey, this is good, or this is bad, or this is in between. But we can tell you a little bit about how it works and what our initial impressions are.
And the way that it works, I mean, you unlock guns. Like I started playing first match. You customize your loadout and getting all excited to try these wacky guns you've been talking about. And I can only choose, the standard battle rifle, the assault rifle or whatever, just a machine gun.
Right.
And all right, that's cool, like because it works, it works well. I'm a grunt soldier, all right. And then, as you win, you level up, you gain rank, and each rank gives you another bonus. And some of those bonuses are unlocking weapons. And
right.
So I just recently got to maybe the 4th or 5th promotion, and I can now equip a shotgun or a submachine gun. And so it'll slowly fill it in like that, so I haven't gotten too big a taste of the weapon.
But it's worth noting that even though it's class-based, this isn't something like, Enemy Territory or like Team Fortress. This is definitely something where you just don't choose a loadout and go. This is something where you really have to earn your stripes.
Yeah.
I think probably my favorite thing about the way multiplayer works is the way game types are woven together into one single match. Everything that we've played has been, in this case, you can customize this. When you create games, you can go through and customize it in different ways. But in the matches that we've all played, you basically have 5 different game types that are all strung together into one single match. So you might play something like territories, or it's like conquest, where you have to capture certain points on the map, followed by a team deathmatch, followed by a capture the flag, which in this case is capture the propaganda machine.
Yep.
And various things like that. But what happens is you don't play, one mode and then it's done, and then you go play the other mode. These modes are all strung together. There's no time in between. So you might be shooting, get to the end of that particular mode because either time is up or because you've achieved the objective, and then you're still shooting at the same people. The mode changes, but you're not moved. You're still going. You're still shooting at the enemy, and of course it's all team-based. There's no free-for-all. So we've obviously taken a look, and we know that the multiplayer is pretty in-depth, and that's part of the reason why you won't see a review until a little bit later on the site. By the time you're viewing this video, the embargo time is already up, meaning that the publisher will allow us to post a review if we wanted to of the game. Unfortunately, this is a really in-depth system, and with only 3 hours of playtime, we definitely need a lot more time to take a look at it. We also want to take a look at it on live servers. At this point, we're not playing on the same servers that you would be playing on, and we're also not playing on the same. We're not playing with a retail disc, the same that you would be playing with. So we want to definitely take our time and spend a lot of time with the multiplayer component, so that we can tell you, how good is this? How much longevity are you going to get out of this particular component? So you should expect to see a review post around the same time the game comes out, which is February 27th. But we're now free to talk about it. We're going to be posting some screens, some gameplay video, and lots of stuff to keep you up to date on what we think about Killzone 2, and to make sure that we're feeding you constant information about this game and what we think, and see some videos, see some screens, and make up your own decisions as well. Before we head out, anything that you guys want to add? Chris Watters, Andre Segers.
If you need help, really assessing this multiplayer mode and really getting a good grasp of it, I'm your man.
Chris is always there for me. Yeah.
Same.
Ditto.
Well, from me, Kevin VanOrd, Chris Watters, and Andre Segers, thanks for joining us and taking in some of our first impressions on Killzone 2, and we will see you around the time of the review.